Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 3:30 p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. session of the 2025 Open Simulator Community Conference. In this session, I'm pleased to introduce the presentation, Avatar Repertory Theater Teaches Shakespeare. My name is Shannon Broden, an actor with Avatar Repertory Theater, and I am proud to introduce our co-founders for today's discussion. Our speakers are Ada Radius and Ian McCracken. Ada Radius, Judith Adele, is an avatar designer and costumer and co-founder of Avatar Repertory Theater from 2007 to the present. She is also the founder and treasurer of New Media Arts Incorporated, a nonprofit foundation tax-exempt under IRC 501c3 from 2010 to present, and a retired CPA. Ian is the co-founder of Avatar Repertory Theater and has worked on theater tech in Second Life and OpenSim for many years. Currently, he's working on finishing the WebRTC voice implementation for OpenSim. In real life, he's a software and firmware developer in several languages. Please check out the website found at conference.opensimulator.org for speaker bios, details of sessions, and the full schedule of events. This session is being live streamed and recorded, so if you have questions or comments during the session, you may send tweets to OpenSimCC with the hashtag OSCC25. Welcome, everyone, and let's begin the session.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle! Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard nae mair. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So that was a little bit of the play that shall not be named. And now I'm naked.
You
So
look great.
there we go. Now I have some suits. So this is Avatar Repertory Theater. We were formed around 2008. In 2007, Ada and I were invited to take part in a presentation of Midsummer Night's Dream using this newfangled thing called voice. So that was very much like the curate's egg. It was a wonderful experience in parts. And Ada and I decided we would found a theater company to do this as a continuing thing rather than just a one shot like the play was, Midsummer Night's Dream. So we formed in 2007, 2008, late 2007, early 2008. And the first play we did was The Tempest by William Shakespeare. Steampunk, we used an entire sim. There was a dragon called Squiffy, who was a good friend of the owner of the sim, who flew around. And we apparently made a bit of a splash. We moved on to Alice in Wonderland, which we called Alice in Wonder SL Land. Later, we did Through the Looking Glass. And then we moved on to other stuff. We ended up doing a number of really big productions, Oedipus Rex being one of them. And then we ended up doing something called Art Plays Around, which is a regular Friday afternoon event where basically we got together as a group and did stuff. We played around. We tried various things. We experimented. And we tried very hard not to be boring. So that's the history for the original incarnation. Ada and I decided this year to start back up again in OpenSim in Kitely to do essentially workshopping. We're workshopping Shakespeare. So the format there is basically you show up, we haul you up on stage and make you read Shakespeare. And Ada will go into what kind of Shakespeare we're doing, aka First Folios, as opposed to the nasty, bastardized, anglicized, modernized 1800s stuff that many people studied in school. So I do a lot of tech. I do a lot of tech. Excuse me. And unfortunately, my throat has frogs in it. I do a lot of tech in the theater, and there's an old saying in theater in general that without the tech, it would just be actors naked on an empty stage with no lights, no costumes, no props, and no audience. There's also a saying where if uh, if there were no actors and just the backstage people, theater would proceed perfectly smoothly with no drama, on stage or off stage. So we end up with the middle road. We have actors and backstage and tech. In Second Life and in OpenSim, most of the tech that I work on is scripting objects. So for Through the Looking Glass, uh, we found that people had difficulty with their cameras when they were sitting in the seats. So I wrote a script that was in the seats that would grab their camera, stick it seventh row center, and that was that. They had a perfect view of the stage and all of the action. We blocked everything to fit in that camera view. There was a scene with a train car where I picked up the seats, rotated the front row of seats around so the two rows of seats were facing each other, slapped a train car in front of them, and shoved the camera up to the end of the train car, which was a very fun scene with a lot of the audience remarking about it. That was fun. Other tech that I did was handing an object from one avatar to another. Both avatars would hold the object. One of them, it would be uh, alpha, and then one of the avatars would trigger the object. Both avatars would be animated to put their hands near each other, and then one of the objects would go alpha, the other one would go non-alpha, and you had the illusion that the thing was transferred between two people. Uh, I did this instead of having a button to push where you would see, uh, a stream of bubbles from one avatar. I did this with gestures. Unfortunately, one actor was very upset that she would have to remove all her gestures, which was rather amusing at the time. Well, not amusing at the time. I was rather irritated. But then again, this was an actor that we had difficulty getting her to change her avatar clothing to fit the role. However, so yeah, there's a huge amount of tech involved in theater, both real life and in Second Life, or in OpenSim. Um, and it's interesting, interesting to see people's reactions to that because so much of it goes unseen. For example, a good lighting design in real life, if there's no comments whatsoever about the lighting, the designer did the right thing, which is counterintuitive. So where am I at? Oh yes, links.
I
I
put the
almost
links
forgot
in.
that.
I put the
Oh,
links
you
in. I did.
okay?
We're
I
good on
have the.
links.
You got the Discord invite? Yes.
I
Good.
got the
Okay.
Discord. I think I got all the right ones. We have a
All
lot of
right.
links.
We have a lot of links, and my time has run out rather rapidly. So I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter Ada, who will talk about first folios and other stuff.
Yeah, but feel free to interrupt if you got stuff. Um, Darren Daly, who in around 2010 was a young British actor, both theater and TV, and one of the actors also in Avatar Repertory Theater. Now he's a professor, but at the time said, Ada, you should be looking at the First Folio. And I go, what's that? And he said, and although I was very experienced in theater, both real life and in virtual worlds by then, I hadn't heard of First Folio. I didn't know you could get the original publications of Shakespeare. So he turned me on to that. And thereafter, I realized that we'd been lied to a lot in school, and that people over the centuries had tried to change the spellings, which changes the pronunciation, and change the punctuation. And when I dug into it some more, I realized that the punctuation and the spelling and the titling of characters and even line spacing in the First Folio are stage directions. This is not literature, this is theater. And everything that we see in the folio is some kind of a stage direction. And so that inspired me on, plus, Darren was helping guide me. And that's where I found out that within the Royal Shakespeare Company, there's a subgroup that just does First Folio production. So as I was working with this, and the active, I should say not active, but the first 15 years or so of Avatar Repertory Theater in Second Life, we held auditions, and all of our actors were also actors in real life, either professionally or community theater, plus 4 professors, and we'll know out there, he's out there in the audience. Anyway, a bunch of professors, all of whom were incredibly helpful in getting us to authentic editions, whether it was Sophocles or Shakespeare or Shaw or whatever it was we were doing. I was trained by a professor who passed a couple of years, Jack Turner, whose Second Life name was Dolgoruki Umarov, and he trained me in Shakespeare pretty much. If I was going on stage as Ophelia, he'd be asking, "Why is Ophelia in this play?" In my I am, and I'm going, "Heck if I know." And then I finally would figure it out. And anyway, he coached me extensively, which is why I felt confident in being able to do transcriptions of the First Folio now and be able to teach them to people who want to learn, to people who want to learn about Shakespeare and want to learn it in a non-academic way, which is what we're doing. So when Ian and I decided to revive Avatar Repertory Theater in OpenSim, we said, we're not going to have any auditions. We don't care if you have any experience or not. We don't care if you show up all the time or not, or if you show up on time or come in late. Whatever it is, we'll fit you in sometime. We'll get you on the stage, and we have transcriptions. The First Folio ones that I've been working on, they're in our GitHub, and so you can just go get it for free and read it, and with line numbers, so you can get up to speed pretty quickly. And we have a core group of around half a dozen people now, which is pretty good for just a couple of months we've been doing it. So far, we've done Taming of the Shrew, Titus Andronicus, and Romeo and Juliet. We were planning to be working on Henry VI, Part 1 right now, but we're going to postpone that till after the holidays. So we'll start that on January 9th. The general format, and Jamie Jordan, also an advisory member of New Media Arts, Inc. I should back up a little and say Avatar Repertory Theater is a project of New Media Arts, Inc., which is a small nonprofit foundation that has just about enough money to run 2 servers, which you can do a lot with in OpenSim. 2 servers will get you a lot of space. So, and also Elon Tochner had donated to the team that's running the Kitely Events Center. That's Kimm Starr and Koshari and Cooper, or some of whom are in the audience, I think now. And when they suggested that we bring the theater troupe there, I said, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's what we're doing. Kimm Starr built us the theater that's behind us here so that we can practice on that. If you can cam around, I'm afraid to move it now because Franz has done this perfectly. This is a replica of an adaptation, I should say, of the old Globe stage, for what we know of it from the drawings and excavations. And the adaptation to virtual theater is that we make all of the back faces semi-transparent because the sight lines are so different for a virtual world theater than they are for a real world theater. I should back up a little bit more and say that I trained as an opera singer originally and was in opera theater for about 15 years before health issues made me switch to, oh, someone found the trapdoor. So, forced me into virtual world theater instead, where there's no room for opera and no voice left for it anyway. So, so what we're doing on Friday afternoons is we're giving people copies of a transcription of the First Folio with all the original punctuation and spelling, and just say, sound it out. Sound it out, breathe when there's a comma, pause a little bit more if there's a semicolon. If there's a colon, that's almost a full stop, but not as long as a full stop period. And what emerges for 21st century people doing this is the original or close to the original cadences and rhythms and rhyming if we're alert enough to spot them in the older spellings. And it's a completely different experience than what we got in school, and it's a good one. I've discovered, and this is also testing it on some quite younger people, my granddaughters and her friends, is that the spelling is not an issue. Changing the spelling makes it worse, modernizing the spelling, because 21st century communicators with each other in text, they don't spell either. They're more likely to spell phonetically than they are whatever the so-called correct one. So, so this has been another revelation, and one that I use extensively. So far we've started in last July. We've gotten our core group so that they're getting around the tongue twisters pretty well. I'm really happy to see how fast they're getting to comfortable with the language and with saying it out loud.
Ada,
Everyone,
that's definitely good to know. We are coming down to the last couple of minutes. So what are the key
okay.
takeaways you want people to take from this?
Okay, let's see. Transcription, we're doing them in more or less the original order that Shakespeare wrote them in, as far as we know. There's a lot of dispute on there. And does anyone have any questions? If not, I can talk for another, 2 hours on this. Yes. Kimm was our Kate in Taming of the Shrew.
And
And
a
did
wonderful Kate she was too.
and a wonderful Kate she was too. It tends, because there's might be 30 parts in a play, and we've only got 5 people. People double up on parts all the time. We'll do it a scene at a time and say, who we got? Okay, you're going to be Juliet, you're going to be Romeo, you're going to be the nurse, you're going to be Paris, you're going to be mom and dad, Capulet. Okay, and you're going to have to do 3 parts. Shannon generally here gets 3 parts.
Could you remind people what time and where we
Okay,
meet?
we meet at Kitely Event Center, and I put the link in chat. The what you call it, the thing you put up in the, yeah, anyway. And Friday, 5 o'clock, and we usually run till 6 o'clock, although there's often people staying later than that to talk about it. But we generally, so we have that 5 to 6:30 blocked out, but the last half hour, we're pretty much tired, and can't read anymore. It takes an hour of that is plenty. And then we, and then if people want to stay and talk, we do.
Okay, and that wraps it up for us today. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Ada Radius and Ian McCracken for an informative and interesting presentation. As a
Thank you,
reminder to
Shannon.
our audience, you'll want to check out conferenceopensimulator.org to see what's coming up on the conference schedule. You won't want to miss our next session, which will begin at 4:00 p.m. in this keynote region and is entitled Welcome to the New Uncanny Valley. Also, we encourage you to visit the OSCC 25 Poster Expo in Expo 3 region to find accompanying information on presentations and explore the hypergrid resources that are in OSCC Expo 2 region, along with the sponsor and crowdfunder booths that are located throughout all of the OSCC Expo regions. Thank you again to our speakers and our audience.